I have an idea for the next blockbuster movie.
I mean, if you think it will make money, I'm in. I've got this really expensive private school I want to send my kid to.
It will. So, the movie starts following this guy, Sean, right?
Okay, I'm not digging the name. Could you make it more interesting?
How about Sean Eggy Dylan Stephenson?
I think that's still too short, but if you like it, all right, we'll go with that.
It will work. So, one day, he goes sledding and hits this guy in the legs and wipes the guy out.
Are they both all right?
Yeah, they actually become best friends.
And this is their first meeting.
Of course. How else would they meet?
I mean, that is a pretty standard way to meet someone. So what other normal things does Shonegi do?
He puts ketchup on ice cream.
Wait, I didn't know this was a horror movie. Ketchup on ice cream? What a monster.
No. This isn't a horror movie.
Good, you had me nervous. I still haven't recovered from watching The Kissing Booth.
That's his favorite movie.
I don't know if audiences are going to like that. All right, what's the finale?
I hadn't really thought about that. Maybe he gives a mediocre speech.
How about a great speech?
Fine.
Introducing the next blockbuster movie star,
Shonegi Dylan Stephenson.
Doğduğumuz ev kaderimizdir. This quote from psychologist author Gülderen Budaycıoğlu, which culturally translates to, "The family we are born into is to become our destiny," has resonated with me as I began to try and understand who I'm going to be in the next chapter of my life. I truly believe that an exploration of your personal values is one of the most crucial parts of making effective decisions in your life. Whether you know it or not, your personal values play into every decision that you make, big or small. However, if you are fully aware of your values, particularly your core values, I believe it is much more straightforward to lead your best life. During this exploration, I began to understand why I made many of the decisions that I have over the last few years. The decisions I've made that have set me apart. I wanted to share my story because I believe it is quite a unique one, however, also one that many people can learn from. Now to the significance of the quote. I was born into a transient and very multicultural family. From the time I was born, we changed countries every 2 years. By the age of 13, I had lived for a significant period of time in 4 different countries on 3 different continents. In each country, I was immersed in the culture and I had to acclimate. I attended school, I made friends, and I attempted to learn the language. Each time we would move, I'd have the same routine. I'd visit my favorite places one more time. I'd say thank you to the teachers that I saw every day and say goodbye to many of the friends that I'd made. As a matter of fact, after having lived in Minnesota for the second time for 2 years, I began this cycle once more, not knowing I would not be moving. This was the end of 5th grade. After living in the same place for so many years, I wanted to understand why I yearned for my old life so badly. This motivated me to start exploring what I truly value. At this point, I have discovered a few core values: challenge, curiosity, variety, and passion. That's all well and good, but for a value to truly be, it must be something that I have acted on. I started working at a very young age, an age that some may deem inappropriate or possibly illegal. My first job was to spend an afternoon at the local Sunday market in Göcek, Turkey, where we lived during the summer, speaking with customers, trying to convince them to spend their hard-earned money on various knickknacks and souvenirs. I earned very little pocket money for the job, but I still really enjoyed it for the experience of meeting lots of interesting people. Plus, when you're 6 years old, any amount of money seems like it could take you around the world. After a record-breaking 5 years of working at the stall, I decided I wanted to give back to my community. So on top of my job, I decided I wanted to start volunteering as a sailing instructor at my club. I would spend 3 to 4 hours a day supervising and giving lessons to the many foreigners that came through wanting to learn how to sail. I made a lot of friends through that experience, which in hindsight seems a little strange because most of my students were at least 5 years my senior, although at the time I was too invested in giving them rigorous training to notice. I did that for a few years, then at the ripe old age of 15, I decided it was time for me to move up in the world. I bid my employer of 9 years a tearful goodbye and went to work in retail. This new job felt like a huge step up. It had all the things I loved about the old job, but this time with air conditioning and a salary that couldn't be easily paid in coins. I happily went from coaching sailing in the morning to stocking shelves and bartering with infinitely stubborn customers in the afternoon. But something kept nagging at me. I felt like I didn't have enough to do in the day. I was drowning in the 3 hours of daylight I had to myself. So when my sailing coach approached me with the opportunity to give private sailing lessons on top of my volunteering, I felt absolutely blessed. You get the idea. I did a lot of things. I think that my story still illustrates my values. Every one of these experiences was a new challenge to face, new rules and lessons to be learned, and I enjoyed every single one. My values of curiosity and passion are tied very closely together in the way that they present themselves in my actions. I'm infinitely curious about topics for which I'm passionate. I think Bidan can attest most of how annoying I was when I would stay in his history of thought class well beyond the end of the period to ask him or tell him something that had been rattling around in my brain. In fact, I think that Dr. Heilig said it best when he commented after I took his space science class. Sean has learned that the key to academic success is to follow your interests, which I believe is meant to say, I can tell when you're interested in something because you actually put in effort. To a more personal example, when I was young, I was rather invested in the trading card game Magic the Gathering. The game gave me a medium to have fun with my friends. I sank so many hours and a financially questionable amount of money into the game, learning the strategies and trying to find the perfect card that I needed. But over time, as most people do, I grew out of the passion, and it was replaced with another. And now those cards that I bought all those years ago are turning into savings for university. I think that from my value of variety, my assorted professional endeavors are a good example, but I'm willing to give another for those who are not yet convinced. 2 years ago, I was given the opportunity to work on a 12 islands tour boat. This is a tagline that many of the boats that run from my hometown use to sell day trips. I knew what the trips were about. All the boats would leave around 10 a.m., they would make a few stops, have lunch, and be docked by 6 p.m. However, I had really no idea what the role I would play would entail. I didn't really expect to get paid. I was just really interested in the new experience. I had no idea I would end up trying to serve tea to 200 sunburnt tourists while a boat was rocking at 40 kilometers an hour. All I can say is that it was very interesting, but I came out of it with a great story and an experience. More recently, I made the decision I wanted to study abroad for university. I applied in the Netherlands, the UK, and in Canada, 3 countries that I have never lived in, yet to me they all felt like a fulfilling next step. My 5th and final core value is one that I chose to omit in the beginning of this speech because it is one that I've been engaging in for the last 7 odd minutes. It's called seek and share, the power of stories. I believe that the fastest way to connect with a person is by sharing your experience and asking them to share their own. There is always some common place you can find through stories. This value for me comes from my grandmother. When I was young and my family would go stay with her in her flat in Istanbul, she would tell me and my little brother all these intricate fables from memory. It wasn't until later that I learned she was taking our entire family history and putting it into the form of these stories as she went along. The people that I have had the most interesting conversations with are those that have had diverse experiences and can share them in interesting ways. Stories are the medium that I've chosen for my message today, and I hope, if nothing else, you are all passively entertained. This is the story of my personal values, where they come from, where they're taking me. I encourage all of you to explore your own personal values. I believe you might discover who you really are and who you might become. Thank you.